Hello and welcome to our presentation today on onboarding and user access management in SharePoint and Office 365. My name is Scott Restivo. I am the CEO of Crow Canyon Systems. I will be giving this presentation today. Crow Canyon is the leading provider of advanced SharePoint and Office 365 applications. We have been doing development on SharePoint and Office 365 for over 10 years now. The company has been in existence for nearly 20 years, and prior to SharePoint we were working in the Microsoft Exchange and Outlook world. Over the past 10 years we have developed a platform of web parts and apps that power up SharePoint and Office 365 to give features and capabilities that are not in native SharePoint and Office 365. We call this the Nitro Platform. This is a layer on top of SharePoint and Office 365 that provides application functionality that gives SharePoint and Office 365 added power and capabilities to bring it to the point where it does real business applications and meets real business needs. In this presentation, we will talk about onboarding and user access management, and those are powered by our Nitro platform on top of SharePoint and Office 365. Onboarding and user access management are complex workflows or complex activities involving numerous departments and various tasks and events that have to happen in a timely fashion. Every organization has different needs and different requirements. We have worked with numerous organizations and in the military and finance and education and all throughout the whole spectrum pretty much of industries in helping them enhance their onboarding and user access management capabilities. One area we have spent a considerable amount of time developing such applications is in industries that have compliance and regulatory requirements. They are subject to government regulation or industrial regulations. Those include finance, healthcare, electricity generators, gas, water providers, water irrigation providers. A number of industries that are subject to these requirements. Now, a secure access request is a form of user access management. This type of access is very important to keep control of due to not only internal operations, but also due to government and regulatory compliance requirements, including the very real risk of being audited and being subject to inspection as to does this person who has been given this rights, who gave it to him, why was it granted, when was it granted, what level of access was granted, and was the person properly trained, were personal risk assessments done. So there's many areas you can go with secure access requests that help meet those auditing and government regulations requirements. Now, as I said, that is one part of onboarding, because onboarding involves, of course, giving access, and application access or physical access. Also, we have this term midboarding, which means when a person moves from one role to another within an organization. And of course, there's the inevitable offboarding. All those activities involve user access management and secure access requests. So the two are very tied together. However, onboarding spans a much wider world than just purely secure access requests. Onboarding involves activities of HR, finance, facilities, IT, of course, and perhaps other areas of the organization. All those tasks of onboarding need to be coordinated. Also, when a person changes a role, what we are calling midboarding, there are changes to perhaps physical location, a need for more equipment, different access to different applications, perhaps training, documentation, policies. And of course, offboarding requires the need to retract the permissions, make sure that's a very important part of compliance, is that somebody who left the company doesn't continue to have permissions. That's important for security and also just for practical operation of the business. And of course, during offboarding, there is the need to return equipment or assets so that they can be reused and repurposed for other members of the organization or other needs of the organization. So with that introduction, let's go into onboarding specifically, and we'll also talk about the intersection of that with user access management and how all that can be done quite nicely in SharePoint or Office 365. SharePoint and Office 365 are great platforms for onboarding and user access management, as well as for numerous other applications. If done correctly, if the proper enhancements are added to it, of course. Out of the box, there's a certain amount of functionality that you get. This is useful. There needs to be added elements to make it into a true business application platform. Let's examine some of that. Here is our Nitro platform. You can see that there's a SharePoint layer. That's the base layer. On top of that is the Nitro platform, which focuses on three basic elements: UI, UX, the user experience, the engagement, the user engagement, how they interact with the application, what information is provided to them. That all lies under the UI, UX aspect of this. Workflows and processes is the second. This is the heart of the application, where the incoming request is assigned, updated, modified, completed, where our associated tasks may be generated, approvals may be required, other workflows may spin off from that one request or task. All kinds of activity can goes on in the workflow and processing aspect of it. And the third part of our Nitro platform is the reporting and analytics. Reporting and analytics applies both during the request or ticket life and also after. So there's two elements to it. One is during the ticket queue management. There is the need to keep track of what requests are open, how many are overdue. These are done in dashboards, and reporting tools can provide that information. But also post completion of the request, looking at historical trends, the reporting and analytics can provide a lot of information that's useful to analyze what happened, how long it took to close issues and problems, and also provide information that can help with continual service improvement, what we call CSI, or continual service improvement, so that you can look back and see what tickets or requests took a particularly long time, which ones were difficult, how many are repeating themselves over and over, and start to come up with some ways to make the process work smoother and better. So now let's focus specifically on onboarding. Onboarding is a multifaceted operation in an organization. There can be a very simple onboarding that is simply create an account, grant access, give the person a laptop and a desk, and they're good to go. But that's very rare. Most often it's quite a bit more complex and involves multiple steps involving multiple parts of the organization. In today's presentation, we'll look at onboarding after the fact of the person been hiring. There's of course a lot of activity prior to the actual hiring, such as recruiting and job interviews that lead up to the actual hiring. But we're going to take it from the actual hiring. A person's been hired. Now there are certain parts of the organization that have to take some action in order to facilitate the person's entry into the company. It starts with filling out a new hire request, a form that gives the information to the appropriate parties. Now that form takes in information, but then once it's submitted, it has to go through very particular approval processes, perhaps also assigning of different tasks to different departments. In other words, it kicks off a workflow, a multi-step workflow. So part of it might go to IT to create the account, create the AD account. It might go to IT to the application side of things to create the application access. It could go to facilities or asset management to give the person a space to work in. It could be a cubicle. Perhaps the person's remote, so things have to be shipped out to him or her. It could be involving IT in the sense asset management side of things to provide the actual physical equipment and set it up, such as a laptop, PC, phone, tablet. What is required depends on the role of the person. So what can be set up in an onboarding system is a matrix in a sense of this role has access to these applications, requires this hardware, and they are in this particular office building. So you can set up this role-based matrix beforehand that determines that when that person is hired for that role, these workflows or processes have to be kicked off. Salesperson will need access to perhaps Salesforce or some other CRM. The person might be an outside salesperson and will need a laptop or a tablet or some other device to help them do their job when they're remote versus inside the office. Every role will have different requirements as to what is being set up. So if you have that matrix set up, you can start the new hire process, choose a role, and then have certain workflows automatically kick off based on that role. Another approach is more of an ad hoc approach where the manager is given a form and the manager can check off various application access and hardware requirements and physical location requirements on a one-off ad hoc basis. Now those two can be combined in that you could have the role-based matrix of workflows and application access and hardware requirements, and in addition have the ad hoc as a way to modify the matrix as needed during particular hires that don't quite fit 100% of that role-based matrix. What you want to do is give a lot of flexibility to it and determine it. Now what we found here at Crow Canyon in talking to many organizations about their onboarding needs is that no one size fits all. There are variations in many ways. Every organization has different requirements, different applications, different arrangements of their offices, different ways they want their workers to work. It is not possible to have a one size fits all except in the most simplistic situations where simply the person comes on, manager checks a few boxes, grant access, create an account, grant access, give him or her a laptop, and then they're good to go. In those simplistic situations, then you could just do that essentially with SharePoint task list. But in the more complex ones, you need the level of sophistication that our Nitro platform provides with the workflow manager, alerting, forms manager, reporting and analytics to make the thing really work well. I will now show you two applications. One is a role-based onboarding user access management system in Office 365, and the other is a security access request system in SharePoint 2013. These applications were developed for our clients who had particular requirements and circumstances they wanted to fulfill. They had specification documents and flowcharts, and these applications were built to those specifications for those particular purposes. So we'll first look at the role-based onboarding user access management system. What we are seeing here is the new hire form. This is in Office 365. This form is 100% customizable with no coding. The form has tabs. The tabs are set in our Forms Manager utility in the application administration. You can add new tabs, you can rename the tabs, you can put permissions on the tabs. Also, the fields that are on the tabs are determined in the Forms Manager also. You can add as many fields as you want, new fields, new custom fields, new drop lists, new text boxes, people pickers, whatever you need for the new hire form. In this case, the customer wanted these particular fields right here, and we have them listed in this manner. There's also the Access Details tab, and on the Access Details tab there is a list of departments in this organization, and when a department is chosen, there's certain roles that appear that are in that department. So the new hire will be perhaps in a department of IT and a network administrator. And when we add that role to this person, to this new hire, we can look at the application access that has been determined should be granted to the network administrator. These are the ones that are particular to the job role of network administrator, and these are the default applications that are given to every new hire. Now all this is determined in the configuration screens and utilities in this program. The list of departments and what roles are in those departments, also what applications are associated with that role, and the default applications. All these are set up in the application administration and the configuration utilities of this program. Now, when this is submitted, it will create tasks so that the person or group that's responsible for each application will then be given that task of creating the proper access to that application for that person. Let's look at a list of requests that have been submitted and see them. Here we have a list of open requests for new hires. We see the first name, last name, manager, department, roles, when the hire date is, and the status, what it's waiting for here. So if we open one of these up and take a look, we can see that for this user, there's a list of information here. The access details are here, but there's also a list of related tasks that are open, or some of them are completed, some are open, for this new hire. There's set up the Active Directory, what applications to give access to, what they need as far as facilities, what they need as far as hardware, and other general onboarding tasks. So this person has a set of related tasks, and they're assigned to the proper people. And then from a manager point of view, we can look at the open request and see that it's out, it's an open, and it is waiting for certain other tasks to take place in order for it to be completed. Now, from a user access perspective, we can look at all the people that are in there that have already been created and look at them. Some are employees, some are not employees or contractors. When we look at one of these, we can see the person's name, whether they're employee or not. They could be a contractor, what department they're in, what role, what associations, what default associations, so we can know right away what rights this person has and see those displayed here in the list here. We can also change applications or change roles. In this case, we would be changing the department, well, probably not the department, but more likely the list of applications, and granting different rights to those applications for that person. That's part of our mid-boarding scenario. We can also remove a user. In that case, we would determine that the person is being terminated or the contractor's time is over, so it's time to retract those permissions. In either case, we know exactly what permissions to retract. So that's a simple view of this onboarding application. We can go into more detail or talk about your specific needs and develop it accordingly, whether in Office 365 or SharePoint 2013. Now, underlying this application in the application administration are a number of Crow Canyon apps. Here's a few of them: the Cascaded Lookup, the Forms Manager, Linked Items, Tiles and Dials, Branding. Also, if we look inside Contents, we can see a large number of other Crow Canyon apps here listed: Forms Manager, Link, Report Manager, Workflows, Approval. These are what power this application, and they can be used in different ways to provide different kinds of configuration or different associations or linkages or interactions or workflows to make the application work the way that you need it to work. There is also a report center where you can generate reports, create your own, or use ones that are there already to determine certain statistics about how many requests have come in, for which department, status, the type, the month, the type of user. That means employee or contractor. So many ways of looking at the data and presenting it, whether it's a pie chart, a bar chart, a graph, a column. All this data can be generated and used for reporting and analytics. Again, this is Office 365, and these reports are being generated from the Office 365 onboarding program that we were just looking at. Now I would like to show you a secure access request system, what's called SAR in this application. This is SharePoint. This is a SharePoint based system. It has an IT help desk and an SAR, or secure access request, component to it also. So let's go to SAR. In the SAR component, we can create a new one, view our existing requests, or if we have to approve them, we happen to be an approver, we can approve the SAR requests here also. So let's create a new one. First, we choose an approver, and the request could either be for ourselves or someone else. In this case, it's for us, which is the account Crow Canyon. This opens up the rest of the form. We are now going to be granting access for Crow Canyon to applications, equipment, buildings, and other aspects of the organization. So we have to complete the requestee form, username, type, it could be where they work, title, contractor, or an employee, and are we removing it or are we requesting access? So we can be requesting access to an application, let's say Cognos, and now in the Cognos portion, they are, let's go up a little here, there is the opportunity to add or remove or be one of these particular roles in the use of the Cognos application. Again, this is all being done in SharePoint. We can come in here and do two of them at once, Cognos and Ariba, add, change, remove, and select these different boxes or drop lists in order to determine exactly what kind of access we want and what job function and other information is needed for people to approve and make decisions based on it. That's for applications. Now for equipment, it's a similar idea. We give them email, phone, computer, printer, add, remove. Also building access, what kind of access they need. Also you can upload who the approval documentation and the approved amount of dollars. So there's a lot of ways to control and get information inputted into this form so that we know what access we are requesting in this secure access request form. We can do applications, equipment, buildings, and of course this is a form that we built inside of SharePoint, and it can be extended to include whatever is particular appropriate for your organization. It could be different, obviously be different applications, it might be different equipment, different building access. And it could also be require that certain policies or documents are attached and included in this request as it goes. Down here you can see that there is actually a place to add attachments. So now if I submit this, I won't do it because this is a live system, but if it did, it'd go into an approver. The person would have to go approve it, and then it'd become a request that is then granted to the person would be granted whatever rights that was designated or requested. So let's look at the submitted ones in different colors. The client chose these colors, so that's what we have here. But here we see one's approved, waiting for approver. And so let's open up one and look at it, an approved one, and it says this request was approved. Approver was Crow Canyon, and what we're doing here is what we're requesting. We're adding email and computer, no building access, none of that. So this was just a simple request for email and a computer for the employee in the laboratory of Crow Canyon. So let's go back and look at other requests waiting for approver. Waiting for approval, I guess you could say. This one they're looking for to remove certain access to applications here to approve that. So these are just test tickets or demo tickets inside this system, but they show that access can be added, removed, and easily done by simply clicking different radio buttons and submitting the request. So let's look at the approve SAR request, secure access request. So approved, denied, approved. So one was denied. So then we go back and we have a view of ours and which ones are approved. So these is the approver, approved, waiting, and then we can have the these are the ones that I would approve or reject because I'm the approver on it here. That's one particular way to do a security access request system. This is particular to this client. They wanted it done this way. It can be more like standard SharePoint instead of this more customized version, but whatever suits the purposes, we're able to do it by putting in the different web parts and tools that make up the Nitro platform to show the form in different ways of showing the form and different ways of showing the list of tickets and collecting information and processing that information. I hope this presentation has been useful and that you'll contact us more to provide your visual onboarding or user access management needs. Thank you.